Hello, welcome to Sun and Moon Yoga's YouTube channel. I'm Annie Moyer, and this morning, this short sequence is called Hug In. And I was thinking about some of the common terms that we know that signify when things are too much for us, when we're overwhelmed. And one of the things that came up for me was the term being stretched too thin, stretched thin. And I thought about calling this class, this sequence, stretched thick, but I thought that that didn't really make a lot of sense, or it wasn't gonna convey to people. But but in but and sometimes the messages we get from common popular yoga images and media is that it's supposed to be that we're supposed to be super flexible and stretched out really wide and long and able to do all kinds of crazy things with our bodies. But to me, that feels like being stretched thin. And we don't really want that. We don't want to be pulled apart so fiercely and so aggressively that we lose sense of center. That's like a rubber band that's been overstretched and it no longer functions. On the flip side, neither do we want to be so inflexible that we don't stretch at all, that we don't give or yield anything in the body or in the mind or in the spirit. And so if we're muscle bound and too tight, then it's all tension. And being stretched thin and being overwhelmed with tension really end up feeling really, I think, often similar to being overwhelmed and um, ineffective in the world. And so the work here is to be flexible just enough to reach out just enough, but not lose sense of what's right in here. Our power, our unique and individual roles in the world, even though we know we are all interconnected and we are all each other, we have been given the the power and the gift of this body and this mind and this heart in this moment to do something that's particular to us, and possibly that that one thing or that one set of things or that one area of being effective in the world can do something for others also. So we're hugging in today. We're going to stay close to the center, close to the midline. And I'm not talking about core strength. That's a whole other conversation. I'm just talking about staying close to what's critical inside of us, what is unique and special, and what is the thing that will make us render us most effective for ourselves and for each other. So to begin, grab something that you can put your foot up on, like I've got a little stool here. You could use you could use a set of stairs and put your foot on the second or third step. You can use the seat of a chair. If you're really ambitious, you could use a countertop or tabletop. So just depending on where the flexibility in your hips is. So just step one foot up on some sort of ledge, some sort of support. And then without splaying the thighs apart from each other and without shifting the hips from left to right, hugging center inward and lunging forward. And then take a breath and reach up nice and tall, lifting through your fingertips. Look up at the space between your hands. Hold this for another couple of breaths. And on your next exhale, let the arms come down, shift the hips back, and then bow forward over your front leg. Peel the toes back towards you, so a back pedal of the foot, leaning down. And then with attention on the standing leg, so we're rooting down into steady balance. Now shift the pelvis a little bit to one side and then shift it a little bit to the other side. So the foot on the lifted leg is remaining pointing upward. It's neutral and flexed at the base of the ankle. Shifting around side to side. Staying close in touch with the breath. And then back to center. And now bend the front knee again and lunge forward and inhale, reach up. Let the heart rise up. I've got Hamilton on my mind, so as soon as I said rise up, I'm thinking rise up. And so I will not sing to you. Nobody wants that. Arms down, and then again, fold forward and sway to the left and sway to the right. So you'll notice that the more energy you have in your standing leg, and the more you have this sense of the thighs hugging in toward each other, toward the midline, the steadier you will be to accommodate this shifting from one side to the other. So in other words, we are not getting stretched thin here. We're really attending to what's holding us in an integrated way. And then pause. Lean forward a little deeper. Perhaps now the hamstring has let go because you haven't forced it to stretch too much, in which case it might have recoiled and prevented any satisfying fold. But here we're just inching down bit by bit by bit, and then come back up. And then flatten the foot for a moment. So halfway forward to the lunge, put some weight into the foot, whatever it's standing on, and then press off of it to step back down 2 feet on the ground. And then let's just take a cleansing of the palate. Inhale, reach up with both feet on the floor. Exhale, fold forward. Hang your head for a breath. Let the spine release. Come up part way. And then exhale, fold down. And inhale, reach all the way up. Rise up. And exhale, hands to the heart. Other side. So with attention, with care, lifting the other foot, planting it on whatever you've found to support it, and then lunge forward. And pause and breathe. And attend to your inner thighs and allow them to hug in toward the midline. So it's an activation of your inner thigh muscles. And then inhale, reach up, lift the heart, lift your gaze, extend through the fingertips. But we're not stretching ourselves too thin. We're just reaching. We're just expanding the space we inhabit. No force. All breath. And then soften, release your arms, shift your hips back, begin to straighten the lifted leg, back pedal the foot, and fold down. So now you have a straight leg, 2 straight legs, one on the ground, one stepped up on a platform, and then shift the hips from side to side. You may notice that the balance was easier on one side or the other. I'm definitely getting more challenged here than I was on the other side. So that's interesting. Be interested in what you notice. swinging left, swinging right, but all the while hugging in. Pause. Lift up the torso, lunge forward again. Inhale, reach up. Long, slow inhales followed by equally long and maybe even slower exhales. Deep breaths all the while. Soften the arm, fold forward again. A couple more sways to the left and sways to the right. Pause. Linger in the fold. See if there's any more room to fold. And then stand up tall. Lunge halfway forward, flatten the foot on the ledge. Press off of it. Step down. Okay, so now you can move whatever you had away, or you can move yourself away from whatever you were stepping on. Okay? And then face the short side of your mat. And inhale, reach both arms up, bend your knees, turn your hips back behind you for chair pose. And we're hugging into the midline. And you can even snuggle the feet right up next to each other, and the inner thighs are right up next to each other. And breathe. And that action of hugging in helps you remain stable. And then fold forward and straighten the legs and hang your head. And then if you have some blocks handy, grab those and put them under your hands. If you don't, bend your knees a lot, fingertips to the floor. Step one foot back and then come into a high lunge. And then take the hand that's closer to your front foot, put it on the inside of the foot, heel toe that front foot out to the edge of the mat, and then come down onto maybe your elbows on the blocks, maybe your elbows on the floor, or maybe you just have your fingertips on the floor, but you're bending your elbows, lowering down a little closer to the ground. And even as this leg has stepped to the side, it's still hugging in energetically. And then come right back up. Switch the position of your hand and the front foot, so the hand goes outside the foot, and then press off the back foot, step forward, other side. Come to the high lunge, and then switch the position of the hand and the foot, so the hand is on the inside of the foot. Come down as low as it makes sense for you, and as the front leg with its bent knee has moved sideways, it is still hugging in to center. And then back up. Switch the positions of the hand and the foot. Press off the back foot, step forward, and then just roll up to stand. Take your arms out nice and wide. Take one arm up and then swing the other arm behind you a few times. Just swing it, swing it. And then soften this raised arm, wave it around. And then both arms nice and straight. Bend the elbow of the top arm, put your hand somewhere on your upper back. Take the bottom arm, swing it behind you. Don't be in a rush to bend the elbow. Just get it as far behind you as you can. Then bend at the elbow, but don't let the elbow slide out sideways. We're hugging the elbow in. So I'm going to show you from behind what this looks like. So in a typical cow's face pose, we might think that we're supposed to grab our hands, and maybe they can touch, but the idea here is just to hug the elbow in And then bring your awareness to the top elbow and hug that in too. And that's it. And then release and shake them out. Swing the arms around. Let them fling. Let them be soft and easy. And now switch. So take the other arm up. Let it be a little soft. Take the other arm out. Swing it behind you a few times. And then hug the elbow in. Bend the top elbow. Put your hand on the upper back. Bend the bottom elbow without pulling it sideways. Hugging in. Breathing. And then shake it loose. Okay. So this time, arms soft, shaking them out. We're going to come into eagle pose. So take your arms out wide and then bring them in front of you. Stack one elbow on top of the other. Bend both elbows. Start with pressing the backs of your hands against each other. And then bend your knees, snuggle your feet in right next to each other. Put all of your weight onto one foot, and then lift the other leg and wrap it around and tuck that foot behind the shin or maybe on the side of it. Crouch down low, hug in, inner thighs, arms, backs of the hands. You may find that you can cross the hands again at the wrist. That's fine. Hug in and breathe. And crouch low and stand strong. And then unwind and land with as much control as you can find. Now shake out the leg that you were balancing on and the other one. Spread your wings out wide and then take the other arm on top. You'll feel it when you get there if you don't remember which one it was. Sometimes the sense is more reliable than the memory. Bend the elbows, backs of the hands together to start. Snuggle the feet in. Crouch down. Put all of your weight onto one foot and then wrap the other leg around. And hug in and breathe. So yeah, there's some flexibility that's happening here. There's some strength that's happening here. But really it's the magic recipe of combining them in just the right amounts so that you're both strong and supple. And then unwind and stand down and shake it out. So now let's come into a tree pose. We have a little bit of openness in the hips from the lunges. We've got a little bit of experience of balancing on one foot. Let's put all of the weight again into one foot. Root down, bend the other knee, turn it out, and place the foot anywhere on the standing leg you choose. And then do anything with your hands. Together, out to the sides, up nice and tall. Breathe. The hugging in here is happening with the inner thigh of the standing leg and the sole of the lifted foot. Breathing. Come out whenever you're ready, whenever you're satisfied, or just before you fall. And then shake out the leg you were standing on. Re-root through the other foot. Bend the knee, turn it out. Lift the foot somewhere, anywhere up the standing leg. As long as the standing leg is firm and engaged and steady, it will support the pressure of the foot against it, and it can answer back into that pressure. So they're hugging in towards each other. Do anything you want with your arms. I'll take my arms out wide this time. Breathing. Quit while you're ahead. Release. Step down. Separate your feet a little bit wider than your hips. Bend the knees just a touch. And then fold forward and hang down. And swing the hips a little bit from side to side as you bend the alternate knees. Let the torso sway. And then hang at center. And now let's come down to sit. Sit with your legs straight out in front of you. And if it's difficult to get the torso lifted, you can put a blanket under your sitting bones. Bend one knee. Stand that foot on the ground right next to the inner thigh of the straight leg. Hug in toward the midline so that the inner thigh of the straight leg and the inner foot of the bent leg are occupying that same balance point, that same track. Hug your opposite knee in towards you, and then turn the heart to the side. So when you're doing the twists to protect your lower back, which is not built for a very high degree of rotation, focus the turning on the upper half of the torso from the ribs above, and then imagine that your belly is actually turning the opposite way. The wonderful, wonderful teacher, Angela Farmer, who is now well into her 80s, teaches imagery in twisting poses as fishes and birds. And she says that the birds fly up through the heart and the fish swim down through the belly at a diagonal that's opposite each other. It's a beautiful image. I think about it a lot. And then let's do the other side. So gently release and switch the legs. And then hug in, arm wrapping around the bent knee as the belly is turning down at a diagonal toward your straight leg. The heart and the whole rib cage are turning up at a diagonal to face the opposite way. Long, steady breaths. Hugging in to this awareness of an integrated center. And release. So we're going to come to reclining now. You can take your blanket prop away if you were using it. Hug your knees, hug them in, make a rounded spine, and then just roll back onto your back and pull your knees towards you without flattening the lower back entirely. So they're only going to go so far. Pull them in towards you. And rather than opening the knees wide toward the shoulders or the armpits, only open them as wide as your collarbones are. So like your kneecaps are lining up to the center of your collarbones. Keep a lift in your lower back, a gentle curve upward away from the floor. And then hook your hands behind your knees, flex your ankles, and lift your shins. So we're moving into happy baby pose, but it's not a wide apart happy baby. It's a hugging in of the baby. So the knees are dropping as if they're aiming toward the center of your collarbones. And they're not going to go as far down as they normally would, and that's the idea here. It's a slightly different variation on this pose. You might end up reaching up and maybe you catch a hold of your outer feet and you press down and you feel your legs really hugging in to the belly, to the chest. And then you can prop your arms outside the shins and press against the outer knees. And breathe. And then let them go. Put your feet back on the ground. Cross one leg over the other. Hug the inner thighs toward each other. Reach your arms up toward the ceiling. And whichever leg crossed on top, take the opposite arm, cross the elbow over. So we're doing a reclined eagle pose now. And then you can pull the knees in. Or you can keep the feet on the floor. Either way. You could go back and forth. As you're hugging in, the back body is spreading wide. The shoulder blades float away from each other. And then unwind. Pause, neutral, feet and arms on the ground. And then cross the other leg on top. And the opposite elbow in front. Wrap the wrists, wrap the palms if they wrap. Hug in. Or keep your feet on the ground. You're still hugging in. Inner thighs, arms, hands right up next to each other, however far they crossed. You might find a juicy spot that's feeling like it's getting a satisfying stretch, but not too much. And you might linger there, perhaps feeling it across the backs of the shoulders or in the outer hips. And then unwind and step the feet down. And then just rock the pelvis back and forth a couple of times. And then straighten your legs and reach your arms behind you. Long stretch from your fingertips to your toes, but you're still hugging in your awareness to that central column of yourself. And then soften the arms, soften the legs. Just take a couple of breaths. And then bend the knees, cross your ankles, rock a couple of times back and forth. And then recross your ankles and rock again a couple of times. And maybe you get momentum to sit all the way back up. And pause here. And bring your palms together. And I thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you have a wonderful day. May you be at peace.